come together. There's one thing left to add to it, which is the adjustment process. And then we can write financial statements again, which we saw in the last 2 chapters, but now we're going to see it kind of all wrapped up together for you to get a good sense of what an exam question will look like. Just to give you a sneak peek, an exam question could potentially look like this, where you've got some information, you've got a list of accounts, you've got transactions, and then you're asked to put it all together, to record the transactions, to record the adjustments, to write your 2 statements, and to calculate some ratios. Before we get into that though, let's talk about what this adjustment process is. So if you recall, I think it was two lessons ago, we talked about the accounting cycle and how during the year we have things happen, we analyze the transactions, we record the transactions, and then once you get to the end of the year, you have to create your adjustments, which then lead to the financial statements, and then the cycle kind of restarts. So what is an adjustment? Adjustments are special internal transactions, if you will, that your bookkeeper or your accountant will do at the end of a period to make sure that all of the accounts are actually up to date. Now, why are some accounts not up to date? There are certain revenues and certain expenses that are not necessarily the result of kind of explicit event on a specific date. What do I mean by that? If you go to the store and you buy something, that's a very clear event. You went to the store, you bought the thing, you gave the money, they gave you the thing, transaction. And you can record it on a particular date, like this happened on May 13th, 2025. But let's say you lend money to somebody, or you borrow money, that's more common. You borrow money on May 13th. Sure, the loan itself is a transaction that took place on May 13th, and we've already learned how to record that. But what about the interest on it? That interest is something that accumulates every day, technically. And so nobody is going at the end of every day and saying, oh, today we incurred, 35 cents of interest. What we do is we kind of let it accumulate, and then at the end of, or whenever it's necessary, so typically at the end of a period, we'll say, oh, okay, this is the total amount of interest we've accumulated in the last 6 months. And we write one record that encompasses those 6 months. So interest is a really common adjustment that's needed at the end of the year. So chapter 4 is really where those first 3 chapters, depreciation is another one. Depreciation on your equipment. Your equipment is depreciating, your long-term assets are depreciating every day. But again, it wouldn't make any sense to sit there and write a journal entry every single day or to record a transaction every single day for that depreciation. It's not necessary. It kind of defeats, if you think about, I think it was chapter 2 where we talked about some of the assumptions. One of the things was the cost constraint. And your bookkeeping should not, the cost of bookkeeping, the cost of your preparing your financial statement should not exceed the benefit. And if you're recording your depreciation or your interest every single day, there's literally no benefit to that. You're just incurring cost. So we're better off just doing one kind of summary transaction or one summary entry at the end of every period to say, okay, this was how much my assets depreciated during the year. I'll give you one more example, then we'll start. You prepaid your rent for a whole year, but you prepaid it on June 1st. And this one, I'll give you a visual. This line represents a year. Okay, so this is Jan 1 and December 31. But on June 1st, you paid, let's say $12,000 for 12 months of rent. We learned already how to record this particular transaction. This would be cash going down and prepaid rent going up. But now, at the end of the year, when it comes time to prepare your financial statements, you need to make sure that all of your expenses and your revenues are correct. And so you have to make sure that any expense you've incurred is reported. Look at what I have on the screen right now. Do you see the word expense anywhere? No. The reason is that at the time that we paid for it, there was no expense. We learned this. When you prepay something, that's not an expense because at that point in time, you hadn't used any of it. But fast forward now to December 31st. Have we not used some of it? We've used June all the way to December. You've used 7 months. But if you don't make a record of it, there is no record of it, and it wouldn't appear in your financial statements. And so the point of an adjusting entry or an adjustment is to say, oh, maybe there was no expense on June 1st, but now on December 31st, I've used 7 months. So I have a rent expense. I've used 7 months, which means I have a rent expense. So my rent expense is going up by, if it was $12,000 for 12 months, that's easy. That's $7,000. And my prepaid rent is going down $7,000. Why? Well, you don't have 12 months prepaid anymore at that point. You're adjusting not only the expense, but you're also adjusting the other asset. You had 12 months prepaid on June 1st. Fast forward 7 months, you've used 7. So the amount of prepaid rent you have has also gone down the equivalent of 7 months. So this is the adjustment here. That's an adjustment. So I'm going to show you guys how to do it. I'll show you guys, I think about, I want to say 9 or 10 different adjustments. Pretty much every single adjustment you might see. Now, what is helpful when you're writing adjusting entries, especially while you're learning, is to understand the original entry, because the original entry, my eraser's not working the way I want it to. Okay. The original entry will often tell you or help you with the, adjusting entry. The original entry was cash and prepaid rent. So it makes sense that when I'm adjusting it, I'm adjusting my prepaid rent.